going on, Radio Man here? Saw a video the other day, and guy on YouTube, I'm sure you've probably seen him. He's pretty successful YouTuber in the I guess you would call it the radio sphere, YouTube, TikTok. I don't know if he's actually on TikTok, but not a Rubicon. His content is mostly focused on GMRS content, although he does cover very lightly like CB and ham type stuff and other types of topics, but I think he's kind of maybe a professional rage baiter. I mean, even if you read his channel description, I mean, he does. I think he has something to the effect of satire and stuff like that, and I think that's how a lot of his channel is operated. Is that he basically survives on enraging people that don't kind of get the joke, and then they go and comment on his videos, which has made the guy, what appears to be successful. I don't know in terms of monetary, but his channel is definitely, he's one of the big guys out there. But anyways, I saw a video, and I think I've cautioned you guys about this in the past, is that if there's somebody out there in the radio sphere on social media that's telling you this is the only radio service that you need, and they tell you all the other ones, forget it. He did one on CB radio, which, I'm 90% confident he's doing this to generate comments, to generate engagement, to help, make his videos, put more eyeballs on his videos. Quite truthfully, I didn't watch the whole video. But anyways, I did see the gist of it, and he's like, he made the point of, no one's spending the time to install one of these big antennas and and these radios and blah blah blah, and they don't even work. Randy kind of comes across to me as the kind of guy that when he installs his GMRS radio, he probably wears safety glasses and gloves in his Daimler Chrysler Jeep. I think where he lives, I mean, how I don't know how many square miles this country is, but it's a big country. It's like, what, 5,000 miles across or something like that. There's a lot of country. And I think where he lives, I've been out west before, and you have these very big mountains and large valleys. And yeah, that's awesome. He made a valid point. I can, this little UHF radio and a portable radio, and I have 70 miles range, and people see that, and they live and fly over America, and they get a GMRS radio, and they find out there's bum kiss for GMRS. And maybe that individual is not financially in a position, physically in a position to put up a repeater. Even here in Maine, with the exception of like Mount Washington, there's no GMRS up there. There's no repeaters in Maine, let alone New England with the topography that we have, especially on UHF that are getting 70 miles coverage on an HT. I'm excluding interconnecting repeaters via the internet. That's a whole nother hot button topic. But I've been out west before, and you can certainly do that. So I caution people when you're looking, you got to take a lot of things into consideration. Yeah, my channel's about CB only because I felt like there was a ton of guys out there already doing, ham, and I just kind of went the CB route. I am an amateur radio operator. I do have my GMRS license, but I also look at, what is there, like 250,000 licensed ham radio users, and how many of them are actually active. And my experience has been trying to get people interested in the radio hobby is telling them they need to go study and take a test is almost a non-starter for 9 out of 10 people. And in some cases, depending on the day of the week, 10 out of 10 people, it's a non-starter. So with all that said, it's kind of why I talk about CB radio with people. I've been putting out some videos on Mestastic because no license required. I'm not saying GMRS is bad, but I think you need to do some research in the area that you live in, because I read through some of his comments and there was people like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's all kinds of CB rate, and it is locally, depending on where you live, there may be more GMRS traffic, more CB. It's going to depend on where you live. So this guy going and putting a video out where he has a giant audience, in the radio world, giant, mind you. He doesn't have Taylor Swift numbers. But people see that and they run out and buy a GMRS radio. And they're probably going to be disappointed. For me personally, I like CB radio. The quality of the radios at Anytone and Radioddity, Stryker, President, these radios that are being put out. Now, technically, CB is part of the HF band. It's right below the VHF low band. I kind of consider CB kind of like VHF low band. It's right there. VHF low band starts at 30 megahertz. A lot of public safety agencies that have VHF low band in rural areas, like Massachusetts State Police, they haven't abandoned it yet because low band covers rural areas way better than UHF does. So, I like the idea that you can go out and get a President CB radio that's going to be all mode, FM, CT, CSS. It'll even do sideband. You pair that up with a nice little amp, and you get yourself a nice little 100-watt class. Oh, hold on a second. Camera. I don't know why. It just went out of focus. You pair that up with a nice little amplifier and a proper antenna installation. Here in the state of Maine, we have a local channel. We have a drive time with mobiles. If we're on sideband, we have 40-mile radius conversations. And I could post the videos if people don't believe me. Easily, 40. We have stations spanning mobile to base 45 miles. That's on single sideband. AM and FM, it's a little bit more difficult, but we're still covering 20 miles easily. That's no repeaters, no infrastructure, no internet, nothing. That's just radio to radio. And the audio quality on these newer radios is great. And when I go and I see, Randy, I think, is part of this off-road community thing. I see he's got some sort of like neon green, Jeep. I don't know. I had a Jeep before. Freaking ball joints were made out of rice paper. But anyways, I've seen people in the off-road community, and they do a video, and they're like, do, and they get the little cutesy music, and they're like, we're going to install a CB radio on our Jeep today. And they get the cheapest radio they can find on Amazon, like a Cobra 19 Ultra, right? And they get this little 1.5 long magnetic mount CB antenna with a coil the size of my pinky, a center loaded coil. And they put it on, and they go, wah, wah, wah. Oh, these things don't have any range. Well, yeah. You just bought the crappiest radio and the crappiest antenna you could buy. And this is one of the things that we struggle with here in Maine is we have a Facebook group and we get new people. And I get it. People are on a budget. And, money's everything. I totally understand it. So they go out and they buy the cheapest radio, and we tell people, really to get into this hobby, if you're going to buy new, obviously you might be able to find things at a swap meet. I tell people to get into this hobby, if you're going to buy all new stuff, probably going to want to plan to spend about $400 or $500. I get that there's exceptions to that, but I'm just saying if you slap your credit card down on the table and you get on the internet and you buy a radio, an amp, an antenna, and everything to get started, I would say plan on spending about $400 or $500. It's kind of like people in the gun community. They'll go and Gucci out their main battle rifle, and then go buy a Chinese-made, chest rig. People that have these Red Dawn fever dream fantasies. Or they buy a bump helmet So, you know, they look like they're high speed, low drag, all tactical, and you know they have a basically the equivalent of a hard hat that's supposed to look like it's bulletproof. I don't know, but you know it's kind of the same thing. You know, you got these people in the off-road community probably running around in a $60,000-$70,000 vehicle, but spending $400 to $500 on a proper installation is a bridge too far for these people, which is amazing to me because I'm looking at the tires and wheels on these vehicles, and probably $4,000 in tires and wheels. But we're going to go buy the cheap magnetic mount antenna from the truck stop rather than spending $100 on a good antenna, you know, $200 on a good radio, maybe another, you know, $200-$300 on a decent amp. No, that's too much money. So I don't know. Like I said, I like the guy. I think he's funny. I get what he's doing, but you know, he puts out videos like that, and it's kind of misinformation. You may live in a part of the country where CB radio is totally dead. Where I am, it's not. It's very well used. And that's the other thing. Dead is kind of relative. You take the entire radio hobby sphere, and I put in that MRS. And MRS and GMRS are really not meant to be hobbies, but they are. So let's just say the available options for people that want to get radios for activities like off-roading and camping. You got MRS, you got GMRS, you know, ham, you got CB. I think I've covered them all, right? Those hobbies in themselves are all dead. When you think about a country of 300 million people, right? They're all dead. There's no way around that. Is there one of those services that there is more activity than the other? Yes, but I think that's going to be largely geographic dependent. So when Randy puts out a video and says that, and says, you know, CB radio is dead, don't waste your blah, blah, blah. Like I said, it's probably part of his shtick to generate rage, to get people to comment on his videos. But where Randy sits and wherever he is in California, that is an accurate statement. But for a country this size, it is not an accurate statement to put out. And I think people really need to do their homework. I do know that GMRS is making a lot of traction in the off-road community, probably because you can go out and buy a little dinky UHF antenna and some little shitty Midland radio that you can stuff under the seat of your Jeep, and you can get into the GMRS hobby for a couple $100, and it's woo-woo, you know, it's great. But it's a squirt pistol of a radio. If you actually, you know, go out and buy some real radio equipment, you can do quite a bit infrastructure free. That isn't, you know, you don't have to hold a license for to be able to use. So that's all I really want to say on that. So anyways, just wanted to put that out there. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end the video here. So anyways, this is a Radio Man, and I'm trying to stop this here. So anyways, take care. Thanks for watching.